everybody, this is Micah with Silicon Valley Global News, and I'm also co-organizing San Francisco Virtual Reality. I'm here with Tobiah. Tobiah,
Hello.
go ahead and introduce yourself. Tobiah, you're with Microsoft, right?
Yes, I'm Tobiah Zarlez. I'm a technical evangelist with Microsoft, which means I have one of the best jobs in Microsoft. I get to talk to developers all day, speak at conferences, go to meetups, and generally help developers out as it relates to using Microsoft technology. Specifically, my focus lately is mixed reality.
Oh, awesome. So do you have to now, a technical evangelist, some people think that means you have to preach how God invented Microsoft, right?
No,
It's a joke. It's a
not
joke.
like that. I do literally preach Microsoft, but
Okay,
in the
just
general
Microsoft.
sense, it's kind of a well, not necessarily just Microsoft, really.
Oh,
I'm a advocate of technology, and I'm a technology expert. You can think of me as like a free consultant paid for by Microsoft to kind of help out and talk to developers. So I do a bunch of talks on like open source technologies like Git that are not Microsoft specific, but of course you can use Git with a bunch of Microsoft tools, and it makes your life as a developer a lot better in general. So
yeah. Is Git a reference
help
to
developers
GitHub?
with. So
is Git a reference to
yeah, I
GitHub?
mean
Oh, it
GitHub
is.
is
Okay.
big.
Yeah, I have an account on
Yeah,
GitHub.
well, GitHub is the biggest repository of Git repositories. Git's the protocol, and GitHub's a company that hosts Git repositories.
So how long have you been
One
with
of many.
How
We
long have you
also do
been?
so in Visual Studio Team Services.
Yeah. So how long have you been?
I've been at Microsoft 4.5 years.
Okay. And so I was talking to you earlier, and you have some
So
really legitimate, a tech background. Like maybe you could tell us what were you doing before you got to Microsoft?
yeah, I mean, legitimate's maybe not the word I would use, but
Okay.
I've had a very good career in the industry.
Okay.
I've been very lucky. So I graduated college, and I wanted to get into game development. My passion is making games. I love games, and so I wanted to be a game developer. And me and a friend decided, well, rather than say go to some affluent kids want to go to Europe for 6 months, do other things, we convinced our parents to pay our rent for 6 months, and we decided to start a company. And our goal was to cheat the system, because after 6 months, we could then say we had real industry experience, and then go apply for a real job. And we started making Facebook games. And this is early 2009. So this is like before Farmville time frame.
Oh, wow.
And while our Facebook games never took off, while we were in the middle of that, iOS opened up its platform to all developers. And they thought, oh, hey, I can learn some Objective-C. Let's make mobile games. And let me tell you, really good business decision to get into mobile games in 2009. So that turned into a company I ran full-time for a little over 4 years, 3 people full-time, and about like 10 contractors off and on that we would kind of swell up for big project pushes and go up and down, basically. We were indie bootstrapped.
Yeah. So you have some real developer experience, and you've actually worked with teams and pushed out
Had a
products.
#1 app on Android for a while. Yep. Our biggest game was Blast Monkeys. That was our most popular one. It was #1 on the Android Marketplace for like a year or something like that. It depends on which version of the Marketplace you used. And that's actually how I got in contact with a Microsoft evangelist, because a Microsoft evangelist contacted us about getting our game onto Windows Phone 7 back in the day. And we did. And it was kind of funny, because I thought, man, no one's using this phone, but I kind of like it. I started using it about more and getting more into Microsoft stuff. And that person became a friend of mine, and we would hang out all the time and play board games. And they moved on to a different part of the company.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, hey, that position's open. That's a really cool, amazing job, getting to talk to developers all day. And long story short, I got the job.
You really love your job, I guess. Can I show everybody?
Oh, I love it.
We got this really cool Microsoft photo for the chat today. This is a Microsoft store, and I just think it looks really cool. Let me move it.
Theme appropriate.
Yeah, theme appropriate. So SFVR, this is the picture up here. SFVR is going to be at the Microsoft Reactor on November 30th, and that's the name of the event. And the topic of the event is the convergence of ideas, science. Oops, this is sideways. Ideas, science, and technology into mixed reality or virtual reality, however you want to call it. So Tobiah is actually going to give a talk, a 10-minute talk and a panel. And Tobiah, what's your talk about at our event?
I'm going to be talking about using artificial intelligence in mixed reality.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'm going to focus on conversation as a platform, which is a technology is not necessarily related to AR, VR, mixed reality, but they kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, there's an
Because whenever you're dealing with
integration. Yeah, there's an integration happening,
yeah, exactly.
but it could still be these technologies have separate foundations. I mean, they could be used
Yeah,
separately.
and a lot of people think of conversation platform as chatbots, being able to do a Facebook Messenger or talking on Telegram or Skype or whatever it might be. But really, all it is processing language and being able to take text in and respond to that with text. But if you integrate that into a mixed reality app or a virtual reality app, you're suddenly able to talk to holograms and have a voice interface, a la Star Trek. And as great as motion controllers are and tracking and all that, I find that a lot of UI experiences can be greatly improved just by the use of voice and being able to talk back and forth with things.
So I was at the Microsoft Reactor the other day, and we had HoloLenses out there, and we had the Microsoft mixed reality headsets out there. And what I discovered was that if you write an app for Unity for the HoloLens, all it takes is just a few minor changes. You're getting rid of the background, basically, or sorry, you're adding a background, and then it runs in a Microsoft mixed reality headset. And so a lot of journalists, I think, were confused about the name of the Microsoft mixed reality headsets. But you got to think about it from a developer's point of view. If you're writing an application basically once and it runs on either the Microsoft mixed reality headset or the HoloLens type of headset, then it's from a developer's point of view that's like you're writing a mixed reality application. So Microsoft is more developer centric, so that's why they thought of making that title, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, so like mixed reality is kind of it's a broad spectrum of a term, right? There's virtual reality, and there's maybe more of an agreed upon standard of what that means, but augmented reality means a lot of different things depending on who you ask, right? And so Microsoft talks about our products as a mixed reality solution because they don't fall on one end of the spectrum, but we have a variety of products, right? So we have the HoloLens, which is maybe more on the the AR side of that spectrum, but it still brings in virtual objects into your space and has a lot of the characteristics that you'd find in a virtual type experience with, being able to have a solid world and placing those virtual objects in there. And then we have on the other end the immersive headsets, which right now sit more on that virtual reality side of the mixed reality spectrum. But as you said, our goal here is that you code for Windows mixed reality. You're not coding for a particular device or a particular handset. So you as a developer just code your app with different capabilities. So you might have the capabilities of the HoloLens mixed reality experience where you're integrating into the real world and an immersive headset where you're looking through an opaque screen. And that's just coding a capability within the same binary, the same way that you can have with universal Windows applications, one binary that goes in the Windows Store that works on a touch screen as well as a keyboard and mouse. And it's just a different input device that you support.
And so what I saw was at Microsoft when I was there was a really easy way to integrate the mixed reality headsets with the HoloLens type of headsets. So the HoloLens headsets being the headsets that integrate the real world, you can easily create applications that can talk to both so people can have multiplayer experiences. By the way, how many people can be in these sorts of collaborative experiences at the same time? I mean, is this going to be like everybody at some point?
It's kind of hard to say a hard limit because it depends a lot on your app. Just think of it as you would any other app, like how many people can you limit, right? There's, can you do an MMO type experiences? Well, depending on how your code works and how much stuff needs to be shared in real time, if it's more of like a Clash of Clans, asymmetrical experience, you can absolutely have, however many infinite number that goes to there. But, in terms of simultaneous players, it depends on what you're actually loading on a particular device, specifically since the immersive headsets are tied to your PC, and that's just the performance limit of that. And then the HoloLens is a completely standalone experience. So you're kind of limited to whatever the mobile hardware can. That said, you can do some pretty powerful stuff. And I personally have played in scenarios, Personally, I think the most I've done is 8, but certainly you could do many more than that, and 8 was smooth completely.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask a question about, because the artificial intelligence can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Well, actually, the right way. Maybe
just like augmented reality, it's a term that means anything to depending on what the marketer wants them to convey.
Yeah. Right. So, but specifically, your talk at SVR November 30th, you're talking about what kind of artificial intelligence? Because at first, when you think of a hologram, you think of a bot, so it's like a non player game character. But then you're also talking about an AI that can understand your processing. Like maybe is it like natural language processing? Is there any deep learning neural networks involved with this bot? Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to involve two of our solutions that we call Conversation as a Platform,
Okay.
which is our a software as a service platform for being able to do in general like chat bots and being able to pass text to a server and get back a response and have a conversation back and forth. And that will also connect with LUIS, which is our language understanding intelligence services. I'm proud that I remembered that the title, but just call it LUIS for short.
Yeah.
And LUIS is basically you can hand it a screen of text and it will turn back, this is what the user intends. So you could say, pass, I want to set an alarm for 7 a.m. tomorrow, and it will turn back, okay, the user wants to do the action set alarm for the time of 7 a.m. and whatever that might be, and really understanding what somebody is saying.
So, so you've been a developer for a long time, and one of my questions is like, so going back in the timeline, like if you look at how hard it was to develop your own cool application for Facebook or for iOS, is it getting easier or harder for developers with the Unity app?
Oh, so much easier.
So much easier.
So much easier. Oh yeah, totally. I think about, in college, like we spent an entire semester making a platformer where someone could just like back and forth and like jump, because we're using the Ogre 3D engine, right? If anyone used that back in the day, and just thinking about like what you can do now in tools, Unity and Unreal in minutes is just staggering. Technology is getting leaps and bounds easier to use and leaps and bounds easier to get into. But, there's also people are building more and more and more with that and are doing deeper and deeper things. So in some ways, it's getting harder in the sense that there's more and more stuff out there and more new things. But just objectively, it's easier than ever to get into it. It's quicker to learn, and you're able to do more maybe and it's a better developer experience.
So people who are considering becoming developers could be encouraged, and especially maybe there are companies out there or brands out there who want to sponsor groups of students to get into developing really basic applications for VR for their brands. That seems like your message would be encouraging to hey, this is a good place to send your money to invest in young people to because it's going to be easy for them to make really basic VR apps and have monetary value.
Yeah, my development career has been kind of jumping on a new platform, right? Like I kind of jumped on the mobile revolution, right? And it wasn't that mobile software technology was a new thing, 7 years ago, but it was iterated to the point where it became easy enough that people can jump in, use it. It was enough platform out there that it was just starting to take off. And, VR, not a new thing, but we're just at that cusp right now where we have headsets in consumers' hands and we have the technology out there to be able to make cool, interesting experiences that I would definitely say now is absolutely the time to at least start heavily researching, hey, you should be getting into this VR space.
Now, I know you can't answer any questions about future Microsoft products. I'm not going to ask, but what could you say your predictions might be for the future of the industry in general for AR and VR and mixed reality? What kinds of...
predictions in general are just such a hard thing for me, right? Because...
what our lives will be like, 5-10 years from now, sort of thing. Like what kinds of...
Well, even... I can't tell you what my life was, right? Like 5 years ago, I would have said, if you asked me what I would be doing, 5 years from now, I could assure you in my wildest dreams, I would not have checked off the box. I'd be talking about what I'd be working on. I'd be doing these projects. I'd be running a company going this. And instead, I'm like, oh, well, actually, I quit being full-time indie. I'm now working for the man. I got married. I have a kid. Like all these things happen in my life completely unexpected. So talking 5 years in the future, I can't predict that, right? And that's what's so cool about this field. And specifically, I'm really lucky at Microsoft I get this role. What I'm working on now this year wasn't what I was working on last year. What I'm working on didn't exist last year. What I'm going to be working on next year doesn't exist yet.
Wow.
So it always is about jumping onto the latest thing. So the number one thing is that things will change, and what we have right now will seem quaint. So if you talk about a predictive way, because what the subtext of that question, I imagine, is what can you predict about the future so that you could do something now to go towards the direction you'd like? The biggest thing is just plan for change, plan for long-term thinking. Yes, but also think about what am I going to do, a year from now with this? How can I build upon this later on? What's the hack versus the long-term solution?
So, as a Microsoft technology evangelist, what are some of your core messages you want to get out there, that you want to tell people and encourage people? What is your agenda as an evangelist?
Yeah, so part of talking about mixed reality as this platform for all sorts of different devices is that, I'm often talking about how open Microsoft is now in general. All of our mixed reality tools are open source right now, and you can contribute to them on GitHub. This is a very different.
These are all open source tools?
Microsoft. If you go to Microsoft's page on GitHub, we have all sorts of open source you can contribute to, and toolkits to be able to iterate onto the tools, expand upon them. A lot of all the classes that you just took at the HoloLens Academy, all of those are online. All of the source code's out there. All of the code that you use is available open source to be contributed to. So if you find a problem, want to add a feature, you could just submit a pull request and make it better. Even our documentation is open source at this point. So it's a really awesome time to be working with Microsoft.
Wow. So like everything, because I remember that I got this little Linux from Microsoft, a little Linux penguin from Microsoft, and it said Microsoft loves Linux, and that all seems like it's really true right now, because you guys are so doing all this open source stuff, and that's really awesome. So glad to hear it. All right, Tobiah, we're going to wrap it up. So if you guys want to hear more, you want to hear Tobiah's talk, he's going to be at SFVR on November 30th at the Microsoft Reactor, and thank you very much. And I am.
Thank you very much for having me.